Amagi Aria Hotel Negombo here to join in with this unique training field for jet ski. We are told that the UIM, the association in charge of powerboating activities worldwide, and the LPA, the Lanka Powerboat Association, has endorsed this specific field for training. We are told that this is the only field within this area that has this capacity. So join us. I am Daindu Thanwasam and this is Pulse. Let's see what this afternoon holds for us. So we are with Mr. John Pettifoot, the chairman for the Youth Development Program for the UIM. Mr. John, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sure. Thank you for speaking with us. Could you take us through about what's happening to this afternoon? How was the day yesterday and how is today? Is it all going according to plan?
Yes, we're having a really good time. My job down here is to bring some training to train some local instructors in the use of jet skis so that the Lanka Powerboat Association can deliver a training program which we hope will attract young people and everybody into the sport of jet sporting and enjoying safety on the water.
I heard from a lot of people that we are going a little international, we are getting more instructors here, we are getting them trained, and there is a bigger exposure. Do you think this is the kind of exposure, this is the kind of feedback that was required from Sri Lanka? Is it working? Are the people coming in?
I think they'll absolutely come. I mean, it's been very interesting that you've got so many jet skis on the island. The interest in those is very strong. I mean, it's a great physical sort of sport and nice to be out on the water. And with this training that can now be offered through the LPA, I think it's going to make a huge difference. And I think people will really enjoy the activity safely on the water, and it will promote interest of Sri Lanka, I think, worldwide.
Yes, you spoke about motorboating and jet skiing in general. Tell us about the sport. How has it evolved? How is it going forward? Like, what is the plan for the next 10 years or so? Can we involve ourselves on a larger platform? Like, can the Sri Lankans go there? Do we have that potential?
Absolutely right. I mean, you're very fortunate to have a round of the jet bike, or Aquabike as we call it in UM, World Championships coming to Sri Lanka in March next year. There's going to be something in excess of 100 riders from 24 different nations taking part. So this training process that we're setting up here is very well timed because it would be fantastic to have a Sri Lankan team, a Sri Lankan rider as a world champion. Now that's going to take time to do, but that's what this program's all about. It's about giving exposure to the sport, showing what's achievable in terms of local people getting out on the water and then competing internationally in a worldwide event.
Who do you think are the front runners, like the leaders in this sport? Who's taking the trophy? Like we see a certain monopoly in certain other sports. Who do you think is front running in this specific sport?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer. I mean, with 24 different countries competing, there are champions from all sorts, all different countries. Russia is pretty strong, that's for sure. But let's see Sri Lanka up there. Let's see them involved. Yeah.
So, what is like the specific requirement? Like, is there some specific requirement for them to get involved in the sport? Should we have some prior interest, some prior training? Is any of that required, or should it go down to a school level in which they can come in and become a very much involved person in this specific sport? Like, there's a lot of people who don't know. The exposure hasn't gone to the people. So, what kind of information can you give those people?
Well, I think there's no specific individual requirement other than a desire to go out there and enjoy the sport and get out on the water and do it. Once you've sort of got that, it's really important to develop the riding skills and particularly the safety skills. I mean, when the championships comes here in March, the top riders will be running at over 100 miles an hour. And that's really fast and that's unbelievable competition. So how do you get to that level? Well, you start here in this sort of region and you start to train. You need to be physically fit and you utilise the experience of our instructors that we've trained over the last week to build you up. And then what you do is you start to compete in local events. You would establish club interest at certain centres around Sri Lanka where they start to develop their skills. And once they've learnt all of that, then they can get on the international ladder and work their way up. So there's a lot to do, but it's a amazingly enjoyable and physically demanding sport.
As a final question to our Pulse audience, which we attract a pretty young crowd, a lot of people who get involved in these kind of things, people who like to get involved in these kind of things. How do you think that they can involve themselves in their sort of domestic platforms? In like, if they cannot reach these specific areas, where can they go to, and where can they begin? Where can they help out in developing this specific sport?
Well, I think what's happening here, if I understand your question correctly, here at Amagi Hotel, they have provided a day here, a family day out for people to get interested on the water. And we just saw a couple of youngsters here a few moments ago who'd been out on the ski and enjoying themselves. That's where you need to start, when you're down at sort of 8, 9, 10 years old, and you need to bring them in. And local businesses and local facilities like this, here in this lovely location, are ideally placed to drive that forwards. So I hope that with the work and liaison of the Lanka Powerboat, together with hotels like Amagi and others around the island, that we can develop this so it becomes something that everybody can feel included in.
We are with Mr. Renuka Koswatha, the General Manager at Amagi Aria and Resort. Ms. Renuka, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Could you take us through this entire event? It's a big event. Before we go into the event, I guess you should give us a small introduction as to why Amagi is doing this. I believe it's a big task. It's a big location as well. Could you just take us through as to why Amagi is doing this?
I think Amagi Aria being in Kuruna in Negombo, I think it's one of the fantastic locations that one could actually have. Negombo, although we are very famous for the seafood and the sea, also I think it's becoming very famous for now the lagoon. So part of the reason for doing this is actually to make sure that we have safe practices in terms of lagoon, developing the lagoon to make it a tourist hotspot for Negombo, and also to make sure that we diversify in terms of hoteliering and hotel management into getting more tourism related and sports related activities happening in Sri Lanka. I think that's the primary objective of something to do one sort of activities like this.
Ms. Renuka, could you tell us how you got involved with the UIM and how the hotel involved themselves with this and brought in this pretty much new field to our country, to the people of our country?
I think jet skis has been in Sri Lanka for some time. I think what we are trying to do here and to bring a new perspective to this sport is that together with UIM. UIM is the world's governing body for water sports, water motorsports. So what we are trying to do is to combine with them and to make sure that we develop the sport in Sri Lanka and to build a little bit of more niche in terms of developing the sports tourism on this angle. I think that's the key. We have a fantastic lagoon in front of us. It's an untapped potential. We are trying to find new ways of making it sustainable and developing this practice and the sport as well. I think that's the key of doing something like this. Also with UIM, Sri Lanka will be the recipient of hosting the World Aquabike Championship one round of that coming up in March. So we've actually got involved with UIM and LPA, which is the Lanka Powerboat Association, to do a training and to develop some sort of quality candidates. Hopefully they will participate in this coming up and coming event in March. So leading up to that event, of course, we will have a lot of series of other events coming through and develop of that kind of caliber and also develop the sports among youngsters. I think that's one of the key initiatives that we want to actually develop.
I think you established kind of like the context very well. Could you tell us where do you see Amagi and this specific sport going in the future for the next, let's say, 10 years, the next 20 years? Where do you see our sport building and this as a brilliant hotel? Where do you see this going?
I think our primary objective as a nation should be to make sure that we have a world champion coming up in Sri Lanka, whether it's 10 years or 20 years time down the line. That's our primary objective. So in doing that, this is actually a small step that we've taken with LPA and UIM to achieve that goal. And hopefully we will achieve that with a very strong plan. But the other side of story is that other objective would be to make sure that we develop the sports among youngsters. There are already a lot of inquiries that we are getting in terms of can we come and do jet ski training on the weekend? How can we do this? So all these packages will be done in terms of the coming future, and to develop the sport, and most importantly bring Negombo back into the map of water sports in Sri Lanka.
So I think as a last question, Pulse attracts a big array of youngsters. What is your message to these youngsters? How can they involve themselves quickly or directly with you, or with the hotel, or with any of the officials that are in charge of this specific sport?
I think Pulse have done a fantastic job over the past few years in terms of developing and bringing the youngsters into a different level in social media. So congratulations to Pulse first of all. Then I think secondly what we want to do is put a message across to say that water sports is actually fast developing in Sri Lanka. We want to unite that and to make sure that the youngsters recognize this as a very fun, safe and a very enjoyable sport that we could actually do, and much more relaxing as well. So I think that's the message we want to give, and if anybody is interested, this is the place to start.
So we are with Mr. Prasanna Ranavira, the president and founder of the Lanka Powerboat Association. Sir, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Very good. Thank you.
So let's just go across as to how you guys got involved with the UIM and build this specific sport that is not very much prevalent, I guess kind of new to the audience within our country. How did you guys get involved and how did this initiate?
It was 2009 actually. I met the Formula One, president of Formula One in London, and he introduced me to it, and so we made application to the UIM. I made application personally, and it took 2 years to approve, which is 2011 we got the basic membership. So from 2011 to 2016 we were running small programs for power boats, and 2016 we became a full member with the UIM, which is a governing body. Since now we were doing lots of training with the kids for power boats until we had the UIM commissioner who just came along, and he did the training program for the jet skis. So we open up for the jet skis now. We got 5 newly trained ambassadors who will take it forward. So we want lots of young people who want to come down and do the training. The first training center is Amagi Hotel in Negombo, which is very close to the airport. So the hotel has given us amazing support to bring it to this level today. So this is the beginning of a jet ski world championship for 2019.
I see that a lot of hard work has gone into coming to this stage as well. Where do you see yourself going across, let's say, the span of 10 to 20 years? How do you think this sport will be present within the souls of the people in our country? Our country that like sports, that follow sports, we become fans of it. How do you plan on taking it to the hearts and souls of the people in our country?
As it is, I get at least 5 to 10 emails from all over the world asking whether we have any trained jet ski instructors, riders, drivers, maintenance people for various sports clubs around the world, especially in Middle East. At the moment, we don't have anybody to recommend. So I hope one of the areas that I want to develop is to do training for these type of things, so people can get jobs around the world. And another area which is to bring the World Championship to Sri Lanka is Sri Lanka itself. Our drivers and riders are pretty good. I think they can take part and win the World Championship. So that will bring lots of interest to the country. And also, there are lots of jet skis around the world. I'm not too sure how many millions. There are, at every single weekend, there are races happening in Europe and in South Africa and Africa and US. So I want to bring those races to Sri Lanka. I mean, a hotel like this can have a weekend racing for foreign nationals to come down. A group of 100 to 50 to 100 can come down and have a weekend here racing and experience the weather as well as the waters.
You spoke to us prior to this conversation. You told us that there are other places where people can involve themselves in, apart from Colombo, apart from Negombo, in the Gampa area. Where do you think they can involve themselves? Let's say in down south, where we have exceptional beaches there as well. Do you have any targeted locations where you will be planning on improving this specific sport?
Currently, we have got agreement with Amagi Hotel, to run the events 30-mile radius from here. And Bentota, we are planning to find. There are many locations. We will find operator who can operate these type of facilities, who can give the facilities. As I told you, we got 5 newly trained ambassadors who will take it forward. So whoever is willing to provide the service facility, we are ready to come on board.
So, since Pulse does attract the kind of crowd that would like to participate in this, is there some specific message like you would like to give to these people? Something out of your experience going around the world and bringing this extremely, I guess, important sport to this country, something that this country can very much foster with. Is there some specific message that you would like to give?
I think, as I mentioned to you, I've been living in UK since 1986, and I keep watching there on news. I didn't know Pulse and they're on the same thing. I think there's a huge Sri Lankan community in London as well as in Europe. It will be good for them to get involved, which I can support them. Not only Sri Lanka, I can support people in fact, I just met a family from Italy, and I told them Italy is one of the main destinations for the racing, which is, there's a huge lake called Lake Como, and it happens throughout the year. Big racing happen. And I said, look, we are there to help if they want to get involved, even in Italy. Anywhere in the world, we are involved. And please get in touch with us.
We are with Mr. Anushka Vikramratna, a participant of today's event, the one who got to participate, I guess, in the early hours. What did you think of the day so far?
Yeah, I went in the morning, so it was a nice experience, and I went 6 rounds. So the trainer was very nice, and this is my first time. So I think it is a nice experience to me. So I live in nearby, so I hope to come again to have more training.
What do you want to tell to our viewers who are at home, who will be watching this with regards to the standards, the safety regulations, all of that? Some people wouldn't show up thinking that it's not safe. What would you like to tell to those people?
Yeah, initially I thought it is not safety, but then I thought it's anyone can participate. Since this is my first time, so I think please come and enjoy, and I think if you train like 2 or 3 days, you can become a very talented guy in jet skiing.